Welcome to The Third Chair, a show about real people, real stories, real life. And here are your hosts for The Third Chair, Peter Grigg and Doug Bazeski.
Last week we had the pleasure of having Jamie here. Do you remember Jamie Singleton?
Yes, he played beautifully. I mean,
The fusion.
fusion, yeah. And
Yeah, the
some classic
fusion
and,
and
different
techno.
types of music, and then he fused that, and I
Yeah.
was like,
And he did that
Very
stunning
neat.
representation with his hands. The left hand was classical, the right hand was whatever he felt like.
a renegade,
A renegade, yeah.
right for renegade.
Well, and as we talked about, he's done a number of interesting jobs in his time and had some battles himself with alcoholism, and so he will
And we
continue
didn't
his
cover all
story.
those jobs, so we need to
We'll
do that tonight.
mention a few of those tonight, absolutely. And it's our pleasure to have Jamie Singleton back with us tonight. Welcome to another episode of The Third Chair. And we continue our discussion with Jamie Singleton. Jamie, thank you for sticking around to film a second episode. We're very grateful.
Thanks, Pete.
And
You stuck around all week?
yes.
In the
we-
same shit?
Yeah, we that's why
We
our
all
producer Doug always says duct tape solves a myriad of problems. Yeah, and as we mentioned the last episode, we had learned some interesting things. You're a musician, and you have had a journey of recovery from alcoholism. We talked about that, and we've talked about some of your other jobs. We're going to get into some of those in a little more detail, including your technical work in electronics and things like that. And so, I mean, what's the fascination with electronics? I mean, I think you told me in pre-production even that you would rather work the electronics and the cameras and things like that behind the scenes than perform on stage, even though you're clearly a performer and a musician. So there's some sort of love there. What's the deal with that?
It's interesting you should say that because, when I was young and I was doing the piano lessons and all that and MTV and, all the glamour of being a rock star or whatever appealed to me, but it was the equipment that really appealed to me. Maybe it's a control thing, I don't know, but the knobs, the buttons, the dials, I just, I was wiring up a Walkman to a large amplifier without even knowing how to do it. Way back when they first came out, find an adapter, every signal flow, something that had to do with wires. I love wires, but I got a whole case of wires, but it just the whole being, as far as like being in the control booth versus the one on stage, is that you kind of like finesse the whole operation. It goes through you before it's complete. And so the performers can be fantastic, and if you're not good at what you do, it's going to kind of ebb away a little bit at what they're doing. They can be horrible, and you can make them better. You know what I mean? So,
thank the Lord for auto-tune, right?
So I guess if I ever really went further in my career or whatever you want to call it, I guess studio work and doing recording and mixing and audio stuff like that would probably be where I would end up. The cool thing is I can actually play the stuff that I want to produce, right? So that's kind of best of both worlds. But I've always been fascinated by, like when I go to concerts, I'm looking at the equipment probably more than I'm looking at the performers. I'm like, oh, look at that mixing board. Oh, wow, look at those keyboards. And how does that get wired? You know what I mean? It's weird,
That is so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see you could be at a buffet restaurant and you're looking at the security cameras.
I do that actually. It's funny story. Las Vegas, I got taken into the back security room because of that very thing. I was walking in looking, okay, there's camera there, there's camera there, there's camera there. And they saw me seeing their cameras. You're not supposed to be seeing their cameras. And couple friendly security guards came over to have a little chat with me. So
Wow.
yeah, well, how come we saw you looking at like every one of our cameras? And then luckily for me, I had my security license with me that shows that I'm a camera and CCTV technician. So I got to visit their actual control room because of that incident.
Oh man.
But yeah, you're right. I do.
Yeah.
I'll walk in and look at the fire alarm systems, and yeah, so people think he likes to look at the sky. No, I'm always looking for how things are wired, either correctly or incorrectly, and stuff like that. So
But it seems like when you have like an interest in things like this, it's very difficult to like enjoy a performance, because I have no doubt in your mind you'll be sitting there and you'll be noticing things, and I'm not talking about the tone or how beautiful the song is. It's like, that's not mixed very well, that's not mastered, these knobs are too high, that EQ's off. You probably think about the technical production so much that you couldn't ignore it if you wanted to.
yeah, and
Is
I
there an
mean,
element of that?
I'm also not, as if I was that good, I'd be down there doing it. But yeah, I do. I nitpick and pick apart stuff. I mean, even when I watch movies, I'll be like, oh, they messed up that, or you know what I mean. You'll catch like certain
Yeah.
things, like a take that the Coke bottle was showing part of the Coke label, but then all of a sudden the next shot, the Coke bottle's a completely different direction. I notice things like that.
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of takes away from who cares about the Coke bottle, right?
Yeah.
Watch the movie. So yeah, but I think that's just kind of how my brain's worked always. I've always been very, very just observing to almost a degree of just overdoing it, right? Instead of just being in the moment. And that's actually worked against me in recovery field too. Is just be here, be now. Don't be everywhere. Yesterday, tomorrow. It doesn't really work.
Sure. And now you've done you told me, I've been done some security work, and it was related to fire systems, and so was this like setting up like automatic sprinklers or smoke detection or carbon monoxide, or what kind of wiring were you doing with security and fire? Or do I have the whole fire thing wrong? I don't remember.
There is an element of sprinklers that I didn't do that. That's more mechanical, but actually it all started with security, CCTV, control stations, and access control. I worked at Sony Electronics. We built control centers. I mean, with like 160 cameras, they call them joysticks or pan tilt zoom controls, facial recognition, motion detection, all tied into the access control system. Fire was just something that kind of occurred as a kind of like a side effect of all that.
Mm-hmm.
As the technology grew for cameras and stuff, where you didn't have to have a license to install them, and they were becoming a lot more available. They were cheap, and they became wireless. That was the big bummer right there. Wireless.
Oh, man.
All of a sudden now you don't need technicians to do this. You can just 10 minutes you can open up a box and have 8 cameras in your house.
Yeah.
Reporting to your computer. So in order to stay alive in the industry, I migrated to fire. And fire is always hardwired. You don't do wireless anything in fire systems. They have to be hardwired. So I could
Is that by code, or is that
That's by code,
or
and-
by common sense? I mean, what?
Well, because if you can't have it fail, and there's too much elements on wireless things that can fail, batteries or power supply. You know what I mean? It's
I
gotta
always
be-
use hard wires as like melting if there's a fire.
Well, they would, but
You
not
know,
until the system told you they were.
You're
I went
You
into-
already know they're going to melt.
Yeah. And so I went into the fire systems to be so that I wouldn't be expendable in the industry, right? So
Okay,
now I
yeah.
know, and it was
So you're
actually
evolving. You're updating
Yeah.
your credentials.
it was fun too. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. Back to the wires again. There I am with my wires, and you do nothing but wires and plugging it into terminal strips and programming and saying it's building something is the whole thing.
Yeah.
You take something. I got this panel. I got all these devices out there, and now I got to get all those devices to talk to the panel. And how do we do that? With wires.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now, people often use the word certifications to get this extra kind of special training, and that's not like going to college. That's like taking short, intense courses. Do I have that right?
it's basically condensed courses that get you. A lot of times, certifications are required by the manufacturer of said products that you're installing, so that you can actually service their products without voiding warranties and things. But
Oh, so
what ends
there's
up
a
happening
legal
is
bit, yeah.
all the way through all these certifications, it's like you went to college, because you're basically learning and actually practically applying what you've learned in the field. I learned what this panel does. I know how it works. Now I've installed it, and now I even know more about it. So in essence, it is pretty much like stacking a bunch of little degrees together But I can't say I have a master's or whatever in anything.
yeah.
But I have all the certifications and training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could also argue that at today's modern university, there's a lot of degrees offered that where people learn nothing and they're totally useless.
Oh, yeah, well-
basket weaving, those kinds of
I
things.
don't know. I've seen some nice baskets.
yeah.
With lights.
Yes.
With lights.
That's right. We'll be selling
some.
official third chair baskets
Yeah.
as part of our merchandise campaign.
Because I was a basket weaving major,
Yeah.
What about boil baskets, right? Put your boils in.
Yeah, those ones are a pain in the butt to make.
All right.
So you've clearly talked about how much you enjoy this the wires and any of the technologies related to that. What about that job is either difficult for you or say the average person that would be interested in that field? What makes that difficult?
Oh, the biggest problem that we have with that job is that you have the project sales managers who are commission based, and they have this unreasonable expectation. They're like, yeah, we'll have this job done in X amount of hours. And they don't install the stuff. They don't go down to the site and look. They'll look like, oh, yeah. They don't realize there's a 3-foot piece of concrete wall that you have to drill through to get the wires through. So they always shortchange you on materials and time. And they're always picking at you to try to get it done. Why isn't it done yet? Why isn't it done yet? And you're like, seriously, how are you why don't you come down here and work one day with us and we'll show you why it's not done yet. So there was that stress. It's always got to be, we got to get it done so we can start another one, got to get it done, start another one. So it's a never ending hurry up and get it done thing,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little annoying at times. And
stressful.
then there's the whole, when you have a brand new install, you have the build outs, the construction company, the general contractor, where you're screwing up their timeline if you don't get it done in a certain amount of time. And then that costs money because every day that you don't finish, there's like all kinds of crazy amounts of money that gets dinged, your company gets dinged for. You could end up actually losing money on a job if it's not done and handled properly. So that kind of stress,
Sure.
and it's just real fast paced and things like that. But
So you got to deliver. There's no, you can't. You have to know what you're doing. You have to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. There's no sort of like faking that you've done it or not.
No, not at all. And then so you get, like I said, if you get underbid by time or materials, and then you got just all different people breathing down your neck, and it becomes your fault that things didn't get done, and you like had nothing to do with it not getting done. So there's that kind of stress there. But
Sure.
you
Well, that's a good insight to know because maybe this kind of job isn't for everyone then. So when we come back, we're gonna find out more of your secret past, or not so secret past, when we come right back.
The official coffee of the Kentucky-Arizona Walnut Association?
It's kava.
The national coffee of Kawasaki, Japan?
It's kava.
Hiya!
Is it the secret elixir of the surfers in Hawaii?
Or is it the secret island recipe of Kona, Koala, Kauai, or Cola? It's kava.
Kava is Polish for coffee. And here at Kava Coffee, we focus on serving a delicious, high-quality cup of coffee in a space where love, coffee, and people mix into the perfect blend.
We value our relationships with our customers and our roasters. Buy locally whenever possible and truly have the homemade touch. Our pastries, syrups, and even our almond milk are made in-house.
So come on in, relax, get some work done. Enjoy the Kava community, some encouraging words from the Kava Coffee Gang.
Kava Coffee.
Be awake.
Welcome back to the third chair, where we have our guest, Jamie Singleton, and he is going to talk to us about where he's working, well, one of the places he's working now, because he's working at a couple of places, but one of them is Springs Rescue Mission.
Yeah.
And what does the Springs Rescue Mission do for the city of Colorado Springs?
Wow, that's a pretty broad question. Essentially, if you
You've
were...
got 10 minutes.
If you want to know every detail.
I know the outside world probably thinks of it as just a homeless shelter, basically, where homeless people can go and they have a place to stay. And in essence, that is what it is, but it's not all of what it is. So it's not just trying to keep people out of the cold. And keeping in mind, that is a big complex. There, at any given moment, we have about 300 to 400 people down there. On a regular basis, and then there's the ones that come for out of town, or when it gets colder there's more numbers. But it's a program and a set of programs that's essentially targeting not being homeless anymore. Let's get you out of the mindset of this is okay, and let's whatever, if it's drugs and alcohol, if it's you don't have your ID, if it's whatever your barrier that it is keeping you stuck where you're at, let's see if we can find out how to make you not stuck. So actually, it's a series of programs designed to combat homelessness. It's not supposed to be a homeless refugee camp. Now, mind you, there's parts of it that is exactly what it is. And the jobs that me and the other people that work there is to try to find the people that will respond to change and affect change, or at least get nudge them into change.
And what area do you cover?
I work with the direct. I'm on the front lines, man. I'm a soldier. I'm there. I check in 200 to 300 people a night into a building that's hot, and there's no air conditioning, and they're grumpy, and they want to fight, and it's horrible. But
sounds like my kids.
but at the same time, I develop relationships with them. They trust me. I've leaned into a few that have gone into our alcohol and drug programs. Some people have actually don't even live there anymore, from little nudges that me and my other coordinators do, where we help them set goals. We help them, us and the case managers, the actual counselors with degrees. They, between us, we find the avenues and pathways and remove barriers, or teach them how to remove their own barriers. And they don't even come there no more. So the objective is not to bring a bunch of people there. The objective is to try to get people to not come there in a very helpful and friendly way, but
Yeah.
It's like
we're not kicking you out.
We're not kicking you out, and we never will, and we never turn anybody away. I mean, people get restricted from site for various reasons, but no mouth unfed, everybody's welcome pretty much. And in the wintertime it's pretty brutal. It's a stark reminder of just how critical programs and things in society are necessary. Colorado Springs Mission is actually comparable in the whole entire nation for its size, for its programs, volume, and it's renowned. People talk about it. People come from other states to come here. It's bizarre. Like, I got a call one time from a guy in Nebraska, and he's having trouble. He's a disabled vet, and has fallen through the cracks with the Veterans Associations, or whatever they call that. And he called. He had heard about the Springs Rescue Mission and all of its various programs and wanted to know if there was any restrictions from coming out of state. No. I explained our programs and everything. He's like, that's fantastic. I have a one-way bus ticket. I'll be there tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool.
So
Well,
he
come look
stayed
for
there?
Jamie. Yeah, he came and actually
Was
did
he
his
a
intake.
successful graduate?
He's brand new. This only happened about 3 weeks ago. So
Okay, so
Um,
he's in the program.
he's in the alcohol and
working on
drug
it?
program, yeah, and he's
Mhm.
staying. He's at the nicer shelter now. He's not at what we call the entry shelter, which is the low barrier where anybody off the street stays there, or people that aren't in the associated programs. He's already moved into the next step, which is he's in the IOP, so he's in a nice shelter. There's only 40 or 50 people there. It's cleaner. You get to leave your stuff. You don't have to take it with you every day. He doesn't have to pay to be there. It's just you can take showers.
It was very smart and very thoughtful of him because he's like, if I'm going to succeed, I need a program like this. And
Mhm.
he did the
and they didn't
research.
have one where he was from, so.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting anywhere with the VA. So, because VA does a lot of stuff for people, but they don't really have a large amount of what do you do when you have nothing. You know, they don't have shelters, or at least they don't have any that I'm aware of. And
Yeah.
we got a lot of disabled vets down there,
Mhm.
and some of the programs are having the caseworkers trying to help them go ahead and get their benefits back through the VA. So there's
And then the post-traumatic stress must be a big.
oh yeah,
thing.
there's a lot of that. People missing, limbs and things like that. Another thing that happens a lot, we're like a mental health drop-off spot. There's nowhere for people that have significant mental health issue concerns that renders them unable to completely successfully live independently in society. Where do you go? What do you do? They don't really have places for people. So would they end up with us?
Because some mental health, the personalities can change and stuff. So
Right. We got
while
a lot
there's
of
some of the other people there.
we have a lot of people that are like that.
But as a general rule, society has worked really hard to close down facilities that would house mentally ill people. You know, they don't want them institutionalized, and so there's so much of a push of we got to get everyone out and have the freedom to do what they want as an outpatient.
And that's unfortunate because that's why we have a lot of them down, a lot of people with those challenges down at the mission, because they really don't have anywhere else to go. They can't hold jobs because of their problems. Luckily, thank God for Medicaid, though, is that at least if they follow through, they can get care and medication. That's part of what we help them with too, is because a lot of times they don't follow through, or they don't self-advocate. They don't know how to navigate the system. So us and the caseworkers will assist in that process as well.
Well, that's good. I mean, I've been helping someone, actually two people with Medicaid applications, and they're not that straightforward. And I'm told there's a 6-month delay in Colorado for even processing. Now, that's just what I've been told by some people in the field. I don't know if that's what you've seen down at the rescue mission.
There's ways around that, actually. But one of the things with mental health people that don't have Medicaid is that if they go into a crisis, say they need to they have like a place called Lighthouse, or they have the Cedar Springs. If they go in a crisis and they're not covered, they get instantaneously elected for Medicaid right then.
Is it like an emergency program?
It's the emergency, yeah. So they have to be cared for, and the place isn't going to pay for it, and they don't have private insurance. Then they get automatically, boom, there it is. You got your Medicaid, and that happens too if you get into a serious physical accident, or like you get into a car accident, or you get into some form of where you're life-threatening accident. You go to a regular hospital and you don't have Medicaid yet, they'll go ahead and facilitate all the paperwork for you.
Well,
I don't suggest doing that. Don't go hit by a bus just so you get Medicaid.
There's kind of drastic ways to do it.
But yeah, you're right. The application for someone who's not used to doing stuff on the computer, navigating bureaucracy type stuff, paperwork. Yeah, so the caseworkers and us, we will assist in that process. We help them self-advocate for themselves. We find areas where people with certain challenges will be able to get employed, that might be background issues, mental health issues. We assist people that are in substance use disorders to try to get better. Like I said, the objective is can we get you back to independent living? That is actually what the mission is about.
Sort of the old, give me a fish, you feed me for a day, teach
Teach
me
me
to
to
fish, feed me for a lifetime. Sounds like that's what the mission's doing.
And that's one of the things that we're visiting right now too, is When Helping Hurts is a concept.
Oh yeah.
You've probably seen some of the posters they're around town. Basically, they're saying don't give money on the side of the street. It's your facilitating.
That's one of the things we've been hearing for years.
Yeah. So When Helping Hurts.
One time our church did something. We gave out of meals, and then they said don't do that any longer. A few months later, because that hurts your programs.
Pride and ego are a barrier for a lot of homeless when they first when they're trying to reintegrate into society. There's a lot of shame and things like that.
Yeah.
So instead of just giving them a meal, how about come work on our food bank? Earn your meals for a couple hours, right? Here. How about a gift card to Walmart so you can go get some uniforms, or you can go get some clothes and go get a job. Give them an ability to have action inside their program. I'm not just going to give it. Here's your uniform. Here's your clothes. Go work. But hey, how about if you come with us and help us unload this truck?
Yeah.
We'll give you a gift card to Walmart, and you can, you know what I mean, something like that.
Oh, I like it. I've talked with a lot of homeless, and one of the barriers that I just haven't thought about, they say you don't know how hard it is to do any of this stuff if you don't have a permanent mailing address.
Which they can have it.
They can have it
Yes,
at
they
the
can.
mission, yeah.
Yep.
But it's like if you can't tell somebody where you are, if they want to send you mail or whatever,
Right.
they won't. Try getting a driver's license or something like that.
And a place to keep your clothes, a place to shower, a place to do laundry. All of that, we have all of that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen, look it up online. There's an aerial shot of the whole complex that is the mission. It is like 4 or 5 square blocks, and it's massive. I'm very encouraged by the whole thing. It's a pleasure to be part of it.
Awesome. And we'll continue with this discussion, Doug.
In a minute after the messages.
Yeah,
after our commercial break.
Hi, this is Peter Grigg on the set of The Third Chair. Our company, Two Men and a Duck Entertainment, are excited about supporting Quantum Leap Recovery, an audio podcast that talks about all issues about drug and alcohol recovery. So watch for it and listen to it, and it'll be a great time of learning, and hopefully it'll help people that are struggling with these issues have a healthier life. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to The Third Chair. We're talking to Jamie Singleton. He's telling us about the Springs Rescue Mission and told us all the great things you're doing. Now, do you have people I call it graduating, but be able to leave and start taking care of themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. There's several different avenues of which ends up happening. Once they have established, they've gotten themselves to where they've gotten some of their clothing and property and stuff. They've gotten a job, that's first and foremost, and they've saved a little bit of money, and they're ready to take that next step. The shelter also helps them with finding what are those next step places. There is one on site, actually, we call Greenway Flats, where it's an apartment complex. There's 3 stories, where some people will go into that, and that's like just one last little, let us keep you here for a little bit longer while you learn how to independently live. Certain cases go there, but in my short time there, I've been there just a little over 6 months, and I have already seen, I would say at least no less than 30 people that I would personally interact with that have actually I don't see no more. And it's not because, I don't see nowhere because they went and got somewhere else to live, there's, the other side of that too. But so the case management, effectively what happens is, if let's see people are on Section 8 housing waiting lists, right? that can be a process that takes a long time. So maybe they stay at the shelter and they work in our associated programs and save money until that housing comes up. That's one of the avenues that people leave. Some people, it's they've gotten themselves cleaned up, the alcoholics and drug addict ones, and maybe it's a reuniting with their families, and then all of a sudden the family's beginning to talk to them again, and maybe they'll go and they'll stay with their families. Some people are basically just needed a little kick. Hey, I used to work. I used to have my own place. I just kind of forgot how to do that. Let's relearn that. And then some, they just take right off. As soon as they get a little couple months worth of working and feeling good about themselves and all that, they snap right back and boom, off they go. So it's really encouraging to see that there is work that's being done, that it's actually helping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. We've had Joel on the show before, and he's talked about the residential drug treatment program, and that around 35% of the people are sober like a year and a half later. So that's not bad.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. There are programs where it's worse than that, and so again, kudos to the rescue mission.
And everyone you get is a big victory.
Right, and they may affect others. Say one person gets out of the drug and alcohol problem and becomes a AA sponsor or a recovery coach like myself, and they help 2 people who help 4. You see where I'm going? Yeah,
geometric progression,
exponential. So I never feel I could spend hours with one person or days with one person. I never feel my time's being wasted, because that energy and that time is going to filter through them at some point to other people.
Do you ever feel like, though, sometimes you're working with someone and it may not have anything to do with you, but you're just not getting through. You're on opposite wavelengths. They're just not open. Do you ever run into that very much?
We have a whole building full of people like that. That's that's called the
a big
shelter.
building. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but there are people who are just fully satisfied in being where they are, and so we don't not try to spend time working with them. We throw tidbits of encouragement and various things, but we know that there is a handful of people, probably the larger handful of people that are down there, are not responding to wanting to change. The mission itself is trying to develop policies and procedures that will sort of, I don't want to say push, but that will kind of filter them into making some sort of progress, because you're not helping them if you just let them be stuck. Really not. Right. Sure, you're not out there on the street, you're not in the cold, fine, we're definitely going to keep that going. You're obviously never going to not be an emergency shelter, because that, there's a need for it, especially when it's cold in the winter. But we're not helping you if we give you 3 meals a day and a place to stay, and you can hang out on campus all day, and you got your mailing center, and you can charge your phones, and you're just existing. We're really not helping, right? So there's policy and things being enacted right now that are trying to see what can we do to possibly push a little bit or nudge a little bit on how do we get people to respond to that change.
Because they're kind of in a limbo land.
Yeah, just mere existence.
That's the golden question always. How do you get people to change?
Right.
If anyone really knew the answer to that, they would be...
You make change appealing.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Absolutely.
If you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of what we do. It's like, okay, so we have our entry shelter, which is that building I was telling you about, where low barrier, where people just stay and they just stay. But we have the next step shelter, which is much nicer. You can have food in there. You got TVs. It's cleaner. You can take showers. You can take showers if you're in the entry shelter too, but you can take showers at a much more broader time spectrum. You can do your own laundry. Doesn't that appeal to you a little bit more than this? You got cleaner bathrooms. Yeah, so there are incentives.
Send my children there.
There are incentives to move through the process.
Nice.
It is alarming though that some people have really become accustomed to just being there. And I try to see what I can do to try to get through to people. Because I would hope I would never get used to that.
Well, there's a couple of really famous books, one called Toxic Charity and another one, When Helping Hurts.
Yeah.
And, it's tricky to know how to help people sometimes.
Right.
Because on the one hand, you're down tonight and you really need me, but it's easy for that to turn into an entitlement kind of mentality.
Ooh, funny you should bring that up.
Yeah.
That's a whole other episode. Or
Yeah. Keep on rolling.
Yeah, we get a little bit of that going on down there too. They've become so accustomed and used to things that if for some reason it changed or it wasn't available that day, you're going to hear about it. You know, They're, like you said, entitlement. But it's a very interesting place to work. It's so different than what I used to do in the electronic stuff. You know, completely just total opposite ends of the spectrum. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say quite a bit different. Do you ever get involved in like wiring projects at the rescue mission?
You know, I see where their fire system is failing here, and I see all this stuff, but I'm doing what I do now, so I just put that hat over where it goes, next to the wires. We're doing people business now, you know.
Yeah.
And it's making my recovery very strong, you know. So I think that's where God wanted me to be. It was totally random that I ended up down there. Very, very random. And I applied in instantaneous hiring. So it had to have, if there's a belief system in the pathways and the bus being driven for me, that was definitely part of that process, because I really didn't put any effort into the whole process. I went down there for one of those AA meetings. It was called CA, same diff, right? And I saw the place and I was impressed. I was unemployed and wasn't really looking for work because I had that burnout that I was going through. And I was basically just like, I'm going to take a vacation and I'm just going to be me, do me for a little bit. But I was getting to the point where, okay, I need a job now. And I literally was like, I asked a question, are you guys hiring down here? And they're like, yes. I was working there 2 days later. I applied, I got on, it was like it had to have been meant to be. There was no other way to explain it, you know. And there we are. And I'm really glad I'm there. It's really been a very inspirational and very strong. It's really made my recovery leaps and bounds, you know.
Right.
Well,
and in our next segment, we're going to talk about your church life.
Oh, yes. And how that's played a role in recovery, and how it's been meaningful, and the rest of the questions will be a surprise.
All right.
When we come right back.
Stay tuned.
Bring it on home. Bring it on down. Action. Welcome back to the third chair with our guest, Jamie Singleton. Thank you. All right, so we have a question for you. And that is, you were attending a church. Yeah, we have a question. For about 3 years, some of this time when you were in active addiction, you were participating at a church. Now, I know some churches where people would not be so kind and perhaps non-judgmental, but you were fortunate. You were somewhere where that wasn't the culture of that church. Can you tell us a little bit about that time?
That's interesting. I don't know if I wasn't experiencing non-judgment, but as you said, that's not the culture of that church. So regardless of what they may have thought, they did not treat me that way. They embraced. They genuinely was, hey, at least it seemed that they were genuinely concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And they had me on their what I would consider to be really important tasks as volunteer. It's the creative arts production department. Everything that is what other people see, I had my hands in parts of it, and they knew I wasn't coming in, ripping drunk or nothing, but they knew that I was struggling with stuff. And how do you trust somebody that's like that? How are you going to rely on somebody you don't know if they're going to be flaky or they're not going to show up? Lucky for them and me, I wasn't. I did, and that may have been the reason that they treated me the way they did, is because I did show, some initiative, drive, and very, very loyal, faithful, and committed. But no, I never did get the distinct feeling that they were going to shun me for that very reason, or I was on the outside looking in, well, maybe a little, but you know what I mean? They really embraced and were genuinely there for me when I needed it.
So there wasn't sort of a, look, go get help and come back when you got your act together.
Oh, no, not at all. Absolutely not. Quite the opposite, in fact. They would ask, and they wouldn't be like, how is it going with your drinking or anything like that. They would just be like, hey, how are you doing? If you need anything, our numbers.
They weren't doing like on a scale from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
How many of you had today?
Yeah. You got those little smiley faces like, how do you feel? What's your pain level? What's your alcohol level?
Now, you were involved with the technical side, and you ran into or met or were supervised by a man named Jason.
Yeah.
And was this a good experience?
It had, and continues to be, yeah.
And continues to be.
It continues to be, yeah. He would have been, that was the one person in the whole experience that was the anchor, my anchor, even though he knew I was really, really struggling a part of the time, he also saw a large amount of my time with them in active recovery and getting better, but he did see some of the really dark and challenging times. And interacting with him, having that commitment or making that commitment and honoring that commitment and having him there to support me and back me up and always being genuinely concerned may have been that one little, that lifeline that I needed at the time, and probably still do. Like, hold on to this because you're about to lose your ass cheeks, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that?
Oh, I don't know. But it's like, if it weren't for that very thing, I'm not really sure how the whole scenario would have went, I mean, I wasn't really even much of a faithful churchgoer in there up until Sunnyside.
Is that where you go now?
That's where I go now, yeah.
What can you tell us, like, where's Sunnyside located, for instance?
Oh, it's on the corner of Murray and Constitution.
Murray and Constitution.
Yeah.
For you out-of-towners, that's in Colorado Springs.
Oh, yes.
Colorado.
It's a big, giant corner building with a 2.5-story stained glass window. Can't miss it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's pretty.
It's like my favorite part of the church.
I was going to say, you have some artistic tendencies. We saw you play some music last week. Was the stained glass, was that meaningful to you at all?
The building itself appealed to me. The first time I went there, I did not want to go to church. My aunt and my uncle were like, I was staying with them, and they were like, well, you want to go to church? And I went because I didn't want them to think I was against it, right? So it was just kind of like to pacify them or whatever. And I walked in the building, and I immediately felt comfortable. That was odd because I don't feel comfortable anywhere. And I like the actual architecture of the building. It's older. Most people would say it needs a facelift. It needs to be this, it needs to be that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of old-fashioned. I liked the way it looked. I went into the sanctuary, and I liked the stage, and I knew there was equipment and wires somewhere. So I found my way to the booth, and I've been up there ever since. I've never left. I probably never will.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have to have me help them lock the doors if they ever shut the place down or whatever. I mean, I'll be there till the end. Hopefully there isn't one,
So what lesson then would you say that Jason taught you that you think would be important for other church members to know about when dealing potentially with people struggling with issues like alcoholism or drug addiction or other crises?
Well, let's just say the openness and the understanding and compassion portion of it is exactly what somebody in that scenario needs at that time. If they feel guilt or shame, they're going to run. You're going to run. You're going to be gone. You're done. You're out. I'm not even going to ever come back because I don't want to face that shame and that guilt. So if everybody in the church had Jason's open attitude and caring attitude, and he counted on you even though maybe you weren't someone that you should be counted on, offer that openness and let the person succeed rather than hinder them with the little judgments and the guilt and things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because guilt and shame are a little bit different. When people feel guilt, they feel bad about something they've done, but when they feel shame, they inherently feel like they're worthless. So it's not just about behavior, but like I'm a loser. And we definitely can say things that really make people feel shameful and feel horrible when they're in a bad place.
And I felt that way anyway, regardless of how I was being treated, because, I knew it's like, these people are church going, real responsible, own houses, they're doing all this. And here I am, some kind of ragamuffin, barely able to bring myself in every Sunday. And it could have went different ways. If he treated me just a little bit differently, I probably would have scrapped,
Yeah.
So however he handled that situation was perfect because it encouraged me, even though I still felt kind of ugly inside as time went on. And now they've seen me grow and they've seen this whole, metamorphosis going on. And so their time and their compassion was not wasted on me, I'm not saying it would have been wasted anyway, but I'm just saying they're seeing that, hey, it was a good plan to keep Jamie around because look, he's doing real well now. And I'm actually such a locked in, integral part of the whole operation now. They've given me more responsibilities.
You're not going to leave even if they wanted you to. Now, you mentioned Ragamuffin. Have you ever read the book, The Ragamuffin Gospel?
I have not.
No, I forget
Peter
who
and
it's
I were in
from.
a discussion group on that.
It's a good. It fits well with people. It should apply to everyone, but it fits really well with people on a journey back from really dark times and how. I forget who wrote it. We didn't a father write it. There was a priest, a Catholic priest. Yeah.
Was it Catholic?
Yeah, really famous. We'll find out for next show.
Well, Jesus didn't hang out with all the perfect and rich people anyway, right? He was going around trying to, gather the people that needed the help the most, the poor.
I often wonder who Jesus would hang out with today.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
not people doing this. Looking at their phones.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the question, what would Jesus do? Would he be a guest on the show? I guess
he probably would. He's very humble.
Yeah, that's for sure. But and that's a really great point that we should be willing to spend our time and outreach to anybody, regardless of where they are in life. I mean, because one of the lies is, that person may be a doctor or a lawyer, but that doesn't mean their life isn't a total disaster. I mean, you can look like you have it all together and still be addicted and miserable and in pain and suffering. You just sleep at night, and drive a Lamborghini, versus being homeless, which is worse, but you're still miserable. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody has their good times and their bad times, and you gotta just survive the bad times.
Right.
Try to enjoy the good times.
Yeah. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Yeah.
I don't know. That may not be a good recovery slogan.
Probably not.
Well, we're going to wrap things up on our final segment when we come right back. We'll get back to our guest in just a moment. But
do you have a story to tell?
Would you, yes you, like to be a guest on The Third Chair?
Send us an email and tell us about yourself and your story.
And please follow us on social media.
Now back to the episode. Welcome back to The Third Chair, and we have Jamie Singleton. And one job we haven't talked about is your second job, and you will run a sober living home.
Yeah.
And Tell us what that consists of and what do you do running this home, because this is not an easy job.
And when you say running it, it's basically preventing it from running away. No, preventing it from. It's more of a preventative thing than it is like when you say make it run. It's like you're building an engine or something. No, it's more like just keeping it in stasis is what it really entails. We have 15 guys at any given point when we have a full house. That includes the 2 managers, myself and my friend Dallas, and then 13 of the other guys. They all come from varying backgrounds. So you got people that have just recently got out of prison. You got people that are, kind of a lot of like the same kind of people that I deal with down at the mission. In fact, we have 3 of the people directly from the mission at my house. In fact,
wow.
yeah, they
That's
came out of
pretty
the
neat.
program you were talking about that has that 35% success rate. I have 2 guys right now in the house that are from there. But anyway, so what a sober home is a transitional place for people who are usually fresh into recovery, have either been mandated by court that they have to stay at one of these places, or people that that are really just like, I need a little bit more of accountability. I'm staying in a place with a bunch of people that have to be sober and have to be clean. There's that part. There's structure because the people that are there, most of them anyway, want to be sober, right? And so if I'm having troubles, I could talk to the next guy, or people will notice if you're having trouble and they'll try to lift you up. You've got people that have been homeless because of their addictions and they can't afford to get their own place. So they can come to the sober home. It's quite a bit less expensive than it would be to get your own apartment, and you don't need a lease, right? And then it's one price and everything's included except food. It's a community environment, right? So it's like a small community within itself of people trying to do the same thing. When I first got to it, I was like, this is not going to be something I'm going to do very long. This is horrible, right? I really didn't, because I was so used to having my own place and everything, and I'm making these adjustments to a different lifestyle due to the fact that I pretty much burned and blew up the other lifestyle, so I'm working my way back. But as it turns out, I love it now. I'm cool. I don't even need to go anywhere. I mean, it's not conducive to having a girlfriend or whatever, because you can't really bring girls home, or anybody for that matter. You can't spend the night without prearranging it somewhere, So there's accountability factors. People have to be accountable. Your face needs to be seen. You get randomly drug tested and breathalyzed and stuff like that. So it provides a level of accountability that might, if someone was on the fence about, hey, I might drink, maybe they won't, because they're like, oh, I'll get kicked out, or everybody's going to know, or whatever. But essentially the question you asked was, what do I do as far as a job? Any of the intake paperwork is facilitated by the managers. Usually that's my department, because I'm a little bit more computer savvy and paperwork savvy than my cohort. Enforcement of guidelines and rules, helping people, very similar. It's almost a duplication of what I do at my job at the mission. If somebody's coming out of jail and they're not used to looking for jobs, they don't know how to navigate, or don't even have an ability to get on the computer, well, then I'll step right in and I'll help them do that. We're just basically try to keep the house clean, tidy, orderly. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to, and helping anybody when they need it. Pretty much is what it runs, and most importantly, keeping the house owners away, because if the house is running smooth, they don't come around. So
good.
you got a good house when the house owners aren't calling.
So it sounds like there's a couple of institutions that send you clients. What about if there's just someone, say, that was watching the podcast and was thinking, man, I think I'd do better if I spent a few months there. Is there a mechanism for contacting those people, or those people contacting you?
Oh, please, as I put, I think there's going to be my email address and phone number will be on the bottom of the screen throughout the show. But it's funny you should bring that up, because there isn't no just open the yellow pages, for those of you that don't know what that is. Googling.
Phone book.
Googling sober homes, you might come across, but it's almost like a word of mouth, private network of things. It shouldn't be, but it tends to be that way. So if someone just was curious, if I didn't have a place at my house, I certainly would be able to find a place for them, because there's actually about 50 sober homes in the greater El Paso County area. And then even other places that would be sort of like sober homes, but transitional living, if you will, for those that might want a little bit more structure, or maybe they're in between places to live or whatever.
And they're not free, is that correct?
They're not free, but you don't have
They're not super expensive either.
And you don't have to have first and last and deposit and all that stuff. I mean, we'll take somebody straight off the street and not be concerned about the money, so to speak, because it's not about the money. Now, of course, at some point, it's going to become a problem if you're not paying. But no, it's not about. It's not a profit. It's not to turn a buck. It's to give people that are struggling a safe place to be, and in that transition to getting themselves back to where they'll be independent living as well.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you for doing that and working at Springs Rescue. I mean, these are important things for the community that don't often get seen, and I think that's...
Yeah, boy, that's so true, Doug. It's a great point. And we would like to thank our audience for watching, and, of course, for Jamie coming down. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the episode if you've enjoyed it. Thank you, and we'll see you all next week, and good night.
This has been The Third Chair. Want to be a guest? Want to sponsor our show? Send us an email. Please subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media.